like a few hours later or something, or the next. And then she has the urge to shower and scrub herself. She races home and showers and just scrubs herself like crazy and doesn't know why.
No.
Oh, God.
So Angie was all messed up from this, obviously. She didn't know what happened to her. It was very vague. She just remembers like a haunting memory of a mask. She ends up getting back to the pet store, goes to work, is there, but she's just out of it. She's weird. She always feels dirty. So she keeps taking long showers and scrubbing herself, which is weird.
Oh my God, this is like a rape victim.
Oh, no.
Yeah, it gets to get some really dark shit. But someone brings in a lizard to this pet store for like a checkup or something, and there was no lizards at the store at the time. This person comes in with a lizard because they were like, hey, do you take lizards? Do you sell lizards, or can you like hold this lizard? And she immediately recoiled in fear and started screaming. So now she knows something's wrong. She's getting flashes of something. She doesn't know what's up. She gets hypnosis. And this is what she remembers. She remembers waking up in a cavern or a base, and she hears chirping sounds, barking sounds. And she kind of looks around her, and it's like, I don't know, like the movie Aliens. This is what it sounds like, the movie Aliens. So if it's made up, this is where it came from. But she said she was like in a jelly-like substance that was around her feet and body. It was kind of holding her kind of in spot, which is creepy. So this is when the reveal happens. She looks up and she notices a group of lizard men, reptilians, walking towards her. They're all 7 feet tall. They have yellow eyes, but they're all in jumpsuits, in black and white jumpsuits, and they all have this logo of a curved dragon with a 7-pointed star. Now, this is in a cavern, too. This is not in a spaceship, the way she describes it, which I thought was interesting. It goes to the whole crypto-terrestrial thing. But one of these guys had orange on. One of the lizards. He was taller, and he was pale, and he was like 10 feet tall. And several different stories, not in the book, but I looked up this story several different places. This person is described not as a reptilian sometimes, and sometimes it is, so I don't know what the truth is there. But clearly in charge, wearing an orange jumpsuit with different writing all over its body. And then she goes unconscious again. So clearly they keep zapping her with something. At one point she sees like a device. It comes up later. So later she wakes up. This is where the terrible shit happens. Naked in a room with pipes and these strange like sacks hanging off the ceiling, like balloons. Clearly something's inside of it, like wanting to come out. And it just reminded me again of Aliens, like the face huggers.
It wasn't like angel hair, was it? Just covered in sticky
UFO semen, Mr. O'Connor.
Okay, just checking.
Or was it?
Again,
I mean, we don't
facts.
know.
Facts.
We don't know. We're just gonna we're trying to get to the truth here.
I'm uncomfortable.
So she wakes up and can't move, and then senses a creature. She sees a reptilian move towards her. She panics. She gets hit with a blue light, and she passes out. She kept passing out, and that's all she remembered in hypnosis. She can't recall the event, but according to Angie in the story, which I don't know if it's true or not, that the creature did rape her. She felt like she was. But though she doesn't remember if specifically it happened. So anyways, that's the end of Angie's story. That's a really big story, actually, in the reptilian abduction world, and I forget who it's verified by, but it's supposedly a UFO researcher looked into it. It also connects to an older story from the 1930s of this guy named Brody. Really quick, he was a prospector. And what was really interesting is same kind of thing happened. He's a cloaked figure with a device, knocked him unconscious. But what happened to him was he woke up in a room with a bunch of other humans. This is all in the Superstition Mountains, too, same area. He woke up to a bunch of humans, and they were all kind of in a trance-like state. But he did get to talk to one lady. Like, one lady was lucid enough to look at him. Like, he was lucid for a second. He was like, what the fuck am I? And she kept saying, the Darrow got us, the Darrow. So Brody was like, what? I don't know what that means. So he wakes up in New York City. Somehow he's transported from the Superstition Mountains to New York City suddenly and is totally flabbergasted, which is a super bizarre aspect of the story. I don't know how it fits. I just wanted to point out that detail. But later in life, he's with researcher John Robinson, who's a UFO researcher. And John Robinson had a copy of the Amazing Stories books or comics on his desktop, because this is a long time ago when those were real. And in it was a story from Richard Shaver, who's famous for the Darrow and the underground layers. And then when the guy saw the Darrow, he freaked out because he remembered the lady saying it to him while he was under there. So for those who don't know, Richard Shaver basically had this story that he was taken underground over and over again by these lizard people, giving telepathic messages. They were messing with them. And he claims that these lizard people were taking people down there every year, abducting people from the surface for meat or experiments. And that's kind of like why I set this up with like how many people go missing in Arizona in the Superstition area and how much weirdness is going on there and why there's such a high proportion of people going missing. And also, there's so much weird shit's going on in the mountains, like beheadings and all sorts of crazy shit. But at the end of this, the last thing I want to say to end this spookiness is that the editor of Amazing Stories interviewed Richard Shaver, and apparently Shaver spoke in like several different personalities and voices, and was like discussing how women were being murdered underground in these caves by these lizard people.
Crikey.
Oof.
Yeah.
Okay, so note to self: don't go on a solo hike in the Superstition Mountains. Check.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just
Check.
wanted it dark. Usually my stories like fun and like Spielbergy. In the end, everyone's enlightened and having great times. Maybe sex with a beautiful Nordic, but not this one, guys. This one, it was Halloween. I wanted to come in dark at the end. You know, just like not hopeless. The Darrow. So beware of the Darrow.
They're coming for you.
Well, Mr. O'Connor, what do you got coming up? What do you got coming?
Well, here's what I got. It's a much happier story. No, it's like super dark, just to match your darkness.
Yes.
So we're going back down the dark stairs.
Lean in. I love it. Yeah.
All right. So I am constantly fascinated by the whole dogman, werewolves,
Yes, you are.
all that sort of stuff. I'm so all about it. I don't care if it's real or not. I just want to believe it's real. So I was trying to find like a classic story. And stop me if you've heard this. Actually, don't, because we need to fill in the time. But I found the story that was from, I guess it was from 2012, and it was on the, what's it called? The Monsters and Phantoms and Monsters website. Phantoms and Monsters, yeah. It's pretty famous if you're into this sort of thing. Anyway, back in 2012, this lady by the name of Jan Thompson, and she's a Fortean researcher from Kentucky. She tells this story.
Remember that name, but not enough to know anything. But
okay,
I'm nodding my head like, yeah, I know who that is.
Yeah, gotcha. Yeah,
man.
So
Monsters.
This Monsters.
Yeah.
This all takes place in the national parks area within western Kentucky, known as Land Between the Lakes, LBL for short. Right? Have you heard of this place? Land Between the Lakes?
Land Between the Lakes.
It's a huge, scary, Fortean paranormal area with, all sorts of sightings and UFOs and all sorts of crazy stuff. One of those triangle kind of areas, I think, by the sound of it. So this story happens back in the 80s, and I guess it was Jan. So she was working at a gas station during this time, always did the graveyard shift for some reason. And she says this whole story because of the area, and it was a huge national parks area. It was took place just before the big tourist season kicks in. So she claims that this whole thing was completely like shut down and kept out of the media and stuff. And so I'm not going to speculate on whether the story is true or not, but it's a lot of fun. Anyway, so she's working graveyard shift. It must be like 2 a.m. Two police officers come through, roll on in, pull up to the front.
Sorry.
Oh my god.
And then this
calm
funky
down.
music starts playing over the speakers. And they're like, you want to see my baton? Anyway.
Yes, Mr. Officer. Woo. I saw a dogman. All right.
I was scared.
Was he hairy like this? So the two police officers, right? They come on in. They're rolling into the station. The gas station is dead. It's 2 a.m. No one's around. And she knows these guys pretty well. They roll in all the time, grab coffee at this, when she's working there, the graveyard shift.
Of course.
So she's on first-name basis with these guys. Anyway, they pull in.
Oh, yeah.
One officer goes inside. The other sits out on the curb and is having a terrible time. He's, like, shaking. They're both, like, pale as fuck. And the officer that stays by the car actually, like, bends over and starts, like, puking into the gutter.
Oh.
He's just... they're a mess, these guys. Anyway, so the other officer goes in and grabs a coffee and a bottle of water for the other guy, help him out. And they're both like so fucking shaken. They're visibly shaken, pale, and just looking terrible. So Jan goes out to the other officer and, gives this guy, hey, you want some Tums, buddy? You doing all right? What's happening? Too many donuts? So
Little cop joke for you.
little cop joke. Love you, cops. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to do that. Anyway, so the sick officer takes a couple of Tums, and his hand was shaking so badly he could barely get him into his mouth. She says.
Oh my god.
So she was like, "Oh man, what? Are you guys okay? What's going on?" And they kind of didn't say anything, and they're just sitting there like shaking, like obviously trying to work through some sort of traumatic event that just happened. Jan's thinking that maybe they came from like some horrific traffic accident or something. You know, police officers have to deal with that shit all the time, and it's never something that they can just, shrug off and keep moving. It always affects them pretty badly. So she's like, "Oh, what's going on with these guys?" So anyway, she just kind of sits with them. There's nothing happening in the store, so she's just kind of like helping them out, like trying to get them to talk, and they're kind of silent and staring. And she sort of says after 15 minutes of mostly silence, one of them starts talking, the sick one. He starts saying, like, "I can't believe it. It's not possible. I just can't believe it." The other one says to him, "I know, it's unbelievable. I've never seen anything like this before." And they just start like muttering these things to each other, and they're in all sorts of trouble. Angel hair, sorry. The officers slowly begin to relay to Jan what happened. They're kind of friends. They obviously need to like talk about this, and they sort of like start talking about what just happened at this scene that they just came from in these sort of scattered, fragmented pieces. And they're really sort of just trying to come to terms with what they just witnessed.
Yeah.
So here's what happened. They just come from this shocking scene at the National Park campsite in LBL.
Ooh, National Park.
Here we
Uh-huh.
go.
Interesting.
Yep.
Interesting. Okay.
So, and again, she claims that this was all covered up because, the amount of money that comes into this area through tourism during this time of year is their bread and butter. That's, and so
Yeah.
to put this out that this happened would be a huge bummer, and, people would stay away, obviously. It's like saying a shark in the water.
Right.
So anyway, they were at this shocking scene. It was a campsite, and there was a RV, sort of motorhome, that was in this campsite. And I guess this young couple who were camping nearby, or actually they were looking for a camping spot.
Were they sexy?
And
Were they hot? Was it like a young hot couple?
Oh, super fucking hot, yeah.
Oh, yeah, I love this story.
Imagine this. All right, so no.
Go on.
Were they
So,
real or fake?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's hard to tell
That's a
these
great
days.
answer. Okay, go on.
So this young couple come to this
Super hot.
campsite, and they see there's something's not right about this campsite, and they witness what is this really grisly scene. I'll tell you about what that is in a second, but they basically fled. They got the fuck out of there.
The young couple?
Yeah, they went.
Okay.
They went to the nearby town, spoke to the authorities there, got a hotel room, and refused to go back to show the police where they was. They didn't want to go back there ever again. So they gave the police directions to where this place was. So the police turn up, and these two guys were sort of relaying what they saw when they finally turned up to the scene. There was, cop cars everywhere. The coroner was already on board. All these people like marking tape and putting spikes in the ground where the evidence was. And here's what Jan says they saw. The front and back doors of the RV, the home, were open. One of the doors hanging by a hinge in a crooked slant. Bloody handprints slid down the thin metal walls close to the front door, and more bloody paintings of hands could be seen across the length towards the back door.
Oh, it's so Halloween-y. I love it.
Yeah, so they could see like there was police officers going through the inside of the RV, but it wasn't so much the inside of the RV where the scene was. It was all around. It was the outside. It was fucking carnage there. Here's what they said. There was already crime scene tape in place in numerous areas, scattered parts all over the area, and little white flags on separate stakes stuck all over the ground marking evidence. The evidence was ripped clothing, bodies and body parts, scattered limbs, a pile of bowels, pieces of loose flesh hanging and clinging to muscle tissue. It was like, it was a meat grinder. Yeah, it was a bit of a meat grinder. So what they found at the scene were 3 bodies, a father, mother, and a son. So the coroner and other investigators at the scene were trying to work out what could have done this, like a wild animal, like a wildcat, bear, wolves. they were looking at possibility of this being just like some sort of psychotic murderer who just destroyed these people's lives for some reason all of a sudden.